The camera caught the moment Donald Trump Jr.'s hand trembled as he reached for his phone. His face, pale with fury, flashed across millions of screens. 911, what's your emergency? Came the voice on the other end. She's threatening me. Live on TV, he stammered, sweat dripping down his temple. But across from him, Reppers Jasmine Crockett wasn't yelling. She wasn't even angry. She was smiling, a calm, unnerving smile, as she held up a thick stack of papers. These aren't threats, Donald, she said coldly. These are receipts. The studio fell into stunned silence. Producers whispered nervously. Camera operators froze. As Crockett waved the documents, viewers leaned closer to their screens, their hearts pounding. What was in those papers that had the son of a former president so terrified he'd called the police on live TV? But before anyone could react, a faint siren wailed in the distance. Was help coming for Trump Jr.? Or was the truth about to land harder than he ever imagined? Hours earlier, Crockett sat in a quiet D.C. office, her fingers tracing every page of what she'd uncovered. Bank transfers, shell companies, hidden assets, and names. So many names. Are you sure about this? Her aide whispered. Crockett's eyes hardened. The American people deserve to know. Now, back in the studio, Don Jr. was visibly unraveling. His voice cracked as he tried to interrupt. This is fake, lies. She's making it up. But Crockett remained calm. She laid out each page one by one as cameras zoomed in. Account numbers, offshore firms, dates lining up perfectly with political favors. Your family's empire wasn't built on hard work, Donald, she said softly, almost pitying. It was built on the backs of those you betrayed. The audience online exploded. Crockett receipts began trending within minutes. And then Trump Jr. did something no one expected. He stood, slammed his fist on the table, and shouted, "I'm done here! Security!" But Crockett wasn't done. Not even close. As Donald stormed toward the exit, his phone still pressed to his ear, Crockett turned to the cameras. Stay tuned, America. There's more. The door burst open. Two uniformed officers stepped into the studio, hands resting near their holsters. "Sir," one said cautiously, "you reported an active threat?" Don Jr. pointed a shaking finger at Crockett. "That's her. She's endangering my life. Arrest her." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. "She's holding documents, sir." Crockett didn't flinch. She stood, lifting another file from her bag. "Before you make any moves, officers, you may want to read this too. It concerns public corruption at the highest levels." The taller officer hesitated. What's going on here? As millions watched the live feed, the room felt like it was holding its breath. The truth was about to rip through more than just the studio walls. Donald Trump Jr. was red-faced, pacing in the corner like a caged animal. "Do you know who I am? My father will end you," he hissed at Crockett. But Jasmine didn't even blink. Her voice was calm, almost maternal. "You've spent years using fear to silence people, Donald, but fear doesn't work here anymore." The officers stood awkwardly, unsure of how to proceed. The taller one finally spoke. "Sir, unless there's an immediate threat, we can't—" "Are you kidding me?" Don Jr. shouted. "She's destroying my reputation." Crockett turned to the cameras. "You hear that, America? Truth feels like violence when you've built your life on lies." Twitter exploded. "She's a beast." This is history in real time. Don Jr. called 911 because he couldn't handle receipts. Then Crockett calmly pulled out one last envelope. Her hand lingered on it. "This isn't just about money laundering or fraud. This is personal." The air went still. Even the officers leaned closer. What could possibly be inside? Hours after the broadcast was cut short, Crockett sat alone in her apartment, scrolling through threats flooding her inbox. "Watch your back. You'll regret crossing them. You're finished." She sighed and shut her phone off. Her grandmother's photo sat on the table beside her, her rock, her reason for fighting. "Grandma always said the truth cost something," she whispered. Tears welled in her eyes. Suddenly her phone buzzed again. A blocked number. She answered cautiously. "Rep Crockett," a voice said coldly. "Stop, or next time it won't just be emails." She didn't flinch. "Do your worst. The truth is out now." But as she hung up, her hands trembled. She knew this fight could cost her everything, her seat in Congress, her safety, even her life. And yet, deep down, she knew she'd never stop. Inside the West Wing, Trump's inner circle was in chaos. "She has the files, all of them," a senior advisor hissed into his phone. "If even half of it leaks, we're looking at federal indictments." Donald Sr. slammed his fist on the desk. "Find her weak spot. Everyone has one." Meanwhile, Don Jr. sat silently, scrolling through footage of his meltdown. Memes flooded his feed. Don Jr. calls 911 on a congresswoman with paperwork, overlaid with crying emojis. For the first time in his life, he felt powerless. At that very moment, Crockett walked onto the House floor with the same stack of documents. Cameras flashed as reporters shouted questions. "Congresswoman, are you really going after the Trumps?" She turned, eyes blazing. "This isn't about going after anyone. It's about standing up for what's right." But as she raised the first page, a text flashed across her phone screen. "We know where you live." The congressional chamber echoed with whispers as Jasmine Crockett stepped up to the podium. Her voice was steady, but her heart raced. "Transparency is not an act of vengeance. It's a duty." Suddenly, her longtime colleague, Reverend Wallace, stood. "Point of order. Crockett's evidence is inadmissible. She's endangering national security." Jasmine froze. Wallace had mentored her once, championed her rise in politics. Now he stared at her like an enemy. "Wallace, why?" she asked softly. He avoided her gaze. "Sometimes doing the right thing isn't worth the fallout, Jasmine. You're playing with fire." Gasps rippled through the chamber. Reporters scribbled furiously, but Crockett lifted her chin. "Then let the fire burn. I'm not backing down." In the corner, Don Jr.'s legal team smirked. This betrayal was exactly what they needed. And as Crockett left the podium, her phone buzzed with a chilling new threat. "One more step, and you'll never see your family again." The next morning, headlines screamed, "Trump Jr. files $250 million lawsuit against Jasmine Crockett." In front of a throng of cameras, Don Jr. declared, "This woman is obsessed. She's spreading lies, and now she'll pay." Reporters turned to Crockett for a response. She simply held up the final envelope she had kept sealed until now. "This isn't about obsession. It's about America." Inside were documents so explosive they could shift the balance of power. Emails showing offshore accounts tied directly to political favors, and even classified information traded for profit. But before she could release them, a judge granted an emergency injunction. Crockett was barred from sharing the files publicly. That night, sitting alone in her office, Crockett stared at the envelope. She whispered to herself, "Do I obey the law, or do I save the country?" As the storm raged, Jasmine received a handwritten letter from her mother. "My brave girl, you remind me of your grandmother, fighting battles no one else dared to face. But remember, even warriors bleed. Protect your heart." Tears streamed down Jasmine's face. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel the weight of her choices. The threats, the isolation, the betrayal. It was crushing her. She clutched her mother's letter and whispered, "I can't give up. Not now." But outside, in the shadows of the Capitol, an unmarked black SUV idled, watching, waiting. Inside it, a man in a suit spoke into a radio. "We have eyes on her. Awaiting orders." The next move wasn't hers anymore. It happened in seconds. Jasmine Crockett was walking out of a Capitol hearing when a mob of protesters swarmed her. "Traitor! Pawn of the deep state! You'll pay for this!" Security scrambled to shield her, but a rock flew from the crowd, clipping her shoulder. She staggered back as cameras flashed. A voice in the chaos shouted, "You should have stayed silent." Pain shot through her arm, but Crockett straightened. Blood stained her sleeve, yet her voice didn't waver. Is this what we've become? A nation where truth gets stoned in the streets? The image went viral instantly, her face bloodied but defiant, standing tall amid the chaos. Across town, Don Jr. watched the footage and smirked. Finally, she knows how it feels to be under attack. But deep down, cracks were forming in his own world. His sister Ivanka had just sent him a text. "Stop this madness, Don. It's going too far." In a rare, quiet moment, Don Jr. sat alone in a darkened office. The laughter of his children echoed faintly from a video on his phone. He paused it, staring blankly. "You're weak," his father's voice snarled from memory. "If you ever let anyone make you look like a fool, you're no son of mine." He slammed his fist on the desk, the sound breaking the silence. Meanwhile, Crockett was at home, nursing her wound. She replayed a voicemail from her mother over and over. "My Jasmine, don't let them steal your light. You were born for this fight." She looked out the window, where neighbors had started leaving candles and flowers on her lawn. Someone had spray-painted "Stand with Crockett" across the sidewalk. But she knew admiration wouldn't stop bullets or lawsuits. And then her phone lit up with a single text from an unknown number. "I have the files. Meet me at midnight." Rain poured as Crockett slipped into the dimly lit parking garage. "Congresswoman," a voice called from the shadows. A young staffer emerged, shaking, pale, holding a USB drive. "They used me. I can't carry this guilt anymore. Take it. It's everything. Bank records, offshore accounts, internal emails." Crockett's hands trembled as she took the drive. "Why risk your life?" she asked. The staffer swallowed hard. "Because no one else will." Suddenly, headlights flared. A black SUV roared into the garage. Doors slammed open. "Go!" the staffer cried, shoving the drive into her pocket. Crockett sprinted toward the exit as footsteps thundered behind her. When she burst into the street, a car screeched to a halt beside her. It was Repper Wallace. "Get in. If they catch you now, it's over." But could she trust him after his betrayal? "Get in the car!" Wallace barked, his eyes darting to the SUV roaring closer. Crockett hesitated for a split second. Could she trust the man who once betrayed her? But as gunmetal doors flew open behind her and boots pounded the concrete, she dove into Wallace's car. "Hold on!" he shouted, slamming the gas pedal. Tires screeched. Bullets shattered the rear window. "Why are you helping me now?" she demanded, clutching the USB drive. "Because I was wrong," he said, voice breaking. "You were right all along. This is bigger than politics. It's about saving lives." Sirens blared in the distance as they tore through DC's rain-soaked streets. Back in the SUV, a man growled into a radio. "She's got the drive. Initiate full blackout. Her career ends tonight." But Crockett wasn't thinking about her career anymore. She was thinking of her mother, her little brother, the people she'd sworn to protect. "God, don't let them pay the price for my fight," she whispered. When Crockett finally reached a safe house, her phone buzzed. It was a video. Her mother, terrified, hands bound, pleading into the camera. "Jasmine, baby, they came to the house. They're watching us. Please stop this before someone gets hurt." Crockett fell to her knees, the phone clattering to the floor. "This is their playbook," Wallace said softly. "They're trying to break you." Tears streamed down her face. "It's working." Meanwhile, across town, Don Jr. was yelling into his phone. "You're telling me my own sister is talking to the press? Ivanka's voice was calm but cutting. You've gone too far, Don. Jasmine Crockett isn't the enemy. The truth is, Eric added bitterly, you're going to take us all down with you. For the first time, Don Jr. felt utterly alone. Crockett sat in the dim safe house, staring at the USB drive. It held enough evidence to take down not just Trump Jr., but the entire web of corruption tethered to his family's empire. But at what cost? She replayed her mother's voice. Please, stop this. Her aide whispered urgently. If you release it, you'll be arrested. You might never see your family again. But if you don't, everything you fought for dies here. Crockett closed her eyes. The weight of history pressed on her shoulders. She picked up her phone and pressed record. America, there's something you need to see. Before she could upload the video, her laptop screen went black. A message appeared. We're in. Say goodbye, Jasmine. The safe house lights cut out. Footsteps approached outside. The safe house door shook violently as boots pounded outside. Crockett clutched the USB drive to her chest, her heart slamming in her ribcage. Don't open the door, Wallace hissed, loading a pistol. Too late, a voice growled from the other side. With a deafening crash, men in black stormed in, faces masked, weapons drawn. Wallace fired once, twice, but was quickly overpowered. Crockett ran, slipping through a back door into the pouring rain. Sirens wailed in the distance. Helicopters circled overhead. She sprinted through alleyways, clutching her bag as though it carried her soul. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. You can still walk away alive, Jasmine, the voice said coldly. But that drive never sees daylight. She stopped under a flickering street lamp, her breath ragged. I didn't come this far to run now, she whispered. And then she pressed upload. The screen read, transferring files, 98%, 99%. Gunshots rang out. She flinched. 100%, uploaded. Across America, millions of phones buzzed simultaneously. Screens lit up with headlines, Crockett drops Trump files, offshore accounts, bribes, and more. Unprecedented corruption unveiled. Don Jr., sitting in his penthouse, watched helplessly as news anchors replayed his meltdown. Donald Trump Jr. reportedly called police on Reverend Crockett. Now the receipts are public. Ivanka's voice came through his phone. It's over, Don. Save what little of yourself you can. He hurled the phone across the room. She ruined me. Meanwhile, Crockett was in custody, hands cuffed, blood dripping from a cut on her forehead. A reporter shouted through the chaos. Congresswoman, any regrets? She looked straight into the camera, eyes blazing. Only that I couldn't save more. The crowd watching outside the courthouse erupted in cheers and tears. We stand with Crockett, they chanted. But in the back of the police van, Crockett stared at her reflection and whispered, was it worth it? Weeks later, Crockett sat alone in her cell, sunlight streaming through the bars. Letters from across the country piled high beside her. Thousands of strangers thanking her for her bravery. A guard walked in solemnly. Congresswoman, you've been pardoned. The people wouldn't stop marching. The president had no choice. She stood, weak but unbroken. As she stepped out of the prison gates, a deafening roar greeted her. Tens of thousands lined the streets holding candles, signs, and photos of her face. Tears filled her eyes as she raised a fist to the sky. You fought for me, she said softly. Now I'll keep fighting for you. Far away, Don Jr. stared at the newsfeed showing Crockett's triumphant return. Alone, forgotten. And as the screen went black, one final message appeared. One voice can change everything. If this story moved you, don't let Jasmine's courage fade. Click like to stand with truth. Subscribe to join a community that believes one voice can change the world. And comment below. Would you have risked everything for justice?